What if FNAF was real? It's a question we've been asking for ages. Since the release of the first game, we've wondered what it would be like to deal with a real Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. We've even made multiple videos about how a real Freddy Fazbear's could happen. However, those were tailored towards a more FNAF-themed pizzeria rather than the actual Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So this begs the ultimate question, what if FNAF was real? Will it FNAF? That's what we're exploring today. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and I thought about this way too much if I'm being totally honest. Okay, let's do this. Well, first of all, let's get this out of the way instantly. If FNAF was real, it would be horrible. Just straight up. 5 kids would have gone missing in one of their locations and the company probably would have closed down. But let's assume that people would still end up going, whether it's because they didn't believe the lies or thought that the government made it up, or because it's their choice, or because they're a YouTuber who wants views. Why are you looking at me like that? Well, assuming that people still went to the restaurant because perhaps maybe they vanished around the area instead of inside the place, what would it be like to live in a real Five Nights at Freddy's? For a kid, it would be pretty awful, but you also wouldn't know it. The world would be dangerous and anyone could be William Afton's next victim, but you wouldn't know that there was a serial killer on the loose with murderous animatronics able to disguise themselves and hide in plain sight that are willing to kill at any moment. But I mean, like, to be fair, that's also like real life, minus the animatronics. For adults, if you have kids, you may be worried. I mean, any parent is always worried about their kids, but if there was a group of kids who went missing in your area, I'm sure that there would at least be a small amount of paranoia. And honestly, it would be reasonable. I mean, I grew up in a house where my father was always worried. So much so that my sister couldn't walk up to her friend's house up the street without him watching to make sure she was okay. And while that would probably be extreme for most parents, if there was a very real threat of kidnapping, I'm sure that there would be a lot of curfews. For the sake of this entire thing, we also have to assume that the police didn't investigate the interiors of the animatronics themselves, despite them smelling like death and leaking body fluids, including blood. Since that's something literally anyone with common sense would check when investigating the disappearance of children and then learning that animatronics are leaking blood and smelling like a dead body. But what of the technology that we see in these games? Would animatronics that can alter their appearance be realistic? No. Of course not. The spring-lock suits, the illusion discs, the twisted animatronics, and the like are all extremely improbable considering the actual technology of not only our time, but the 80s when this would have normally taken place. At least, if we have a rough idea of the timeline, which honestly at this point, we could be totally wrong about the timeline. Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Chuck E. Cheese, it was clear the stage was set, no pun intended, for a new contender in children's entertainment. The last part did incredibly well, and with all the DMs I've been getting and lack of hate comments on the last video, you all seem to really enjoy the idea of a real Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So I figured in a greater effort to make it happen, that I'd go into more detail about just how this real Chuck E. Cheese location could become FNAF. Part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, go do that now. It may not have popped up yet, but it is up in the top right corner. It's in the iCard. So you'll have a base understanding of the close Chuck E. Cheese we picked in Florida and why we picked it, along with other references I'll be making in this part. Okay, now let's do it. The menu is simple, since it's on a monitor and needs to be seen at a distance, with a red border and simple sans serif text describing the various dishes and listing prices, with images of the dishes of the 4 major characters on each of the screens: Freddy's Pizza, Chica's Chicken Wings, Bonnie's Breakfast for Dinner, and Foxy's Ultimate Nachos. I was going to do Ultimate Fries, but kids are going to find nachos more exciting than fries, even if the whole alliteration thing makes sense. And while the horror events are focused on adults, the majority of the fan base and patrons are going to be children. Hopefully not missing ones. Obviously, you can also offer alcoholic beverages like beer and perhaps margaritas for the parents of the kids during the day, and all the adults that will be coming in during the horror nights, more on that later. But other than that, it's a fairly straightforward menu. The menu has to be simple for the kids and anyone looking from a distance, and this is the kind of stuff I actually went to school for. The technology in the games is so highly advanced that we have absolutely no idea what else they could have access to. They could have smartphones in the 80s for crying out loud. And if they don't, then William should have capitalized on that rather than murdering countless innocent kids, because he could have literally been a billionaire. The highly advanced technology would have to be disregarded in terms of the abilities of William Afton, so while this seems like a fight that nobody could really win, realistically, it wouldn't be as bad as we think, at least in those terms, since even Chuck E. Cheese, the closest thing to Freddy Fazbear's in our world, obviously, still only has the most simple robotic abilities known to man, despite the popularity of Five Nights at Freddy's and their ability to capitalize on that trend by taking some of those concepts, like the advanced robotics, not the dead kids, and then converting them into real life, because like the concepts in the actual pizzeria, not having kids go missing, like I said, that's a bad idea. Although based on comments left on previous videos, especially about how a real-life Freddy's would happen, there have been plenty of people that are willing to die, or more likely to go to Chuck E. Cheese if it was more dangerous for some reason. Y'all are weird. But one final query. How would YouTubers handle it? Clearly, there are YouTubers in this world thanks to the mention of MatPat, or at the very least Game Theory in the Fazbear Frights books, so what of the others? Well, we would most likely not be talking about FNAF. Something that I'm sure a lot of you would enjoy, but also something that you wouldn't be aware of, which is a whole other can of worms that I won't be getting into today, because you wouldn't know about FNAF, because FNAF wouldn't be a thing. However, I'm sure that there would be plenty of true crime and conspiracy YouTubers heading to a or the same Freddy Fazbear's where the kids went missing in order to solve the case. Or really just talk about it and get nowhere with it. Sounds like someone I know. Since they don't have the clearance or the equipment to do an actual investigation, or on a potentially closed case. Shane Dawson would 100% have gone there for that same conspiracy theory video, and the psychic twins would definitely have showed up at some point and definitely sensed something, but not quite known what it was. Ooh. MatPat may have made a food theory video about it because he made a food theory video about Chuck E. Cheese, but the thing is, these YouTubers coming to investigate, would they be William's next targets? It's an interesting question because as far as we know, he's only killed one adult, and that was Henry. Every other victim has been a kid, so while they may be in more danger, there would clearly be a bigger issue in trying to deal with these YouTubers, especially if they get killed or die mysteriously shortly after visiting a Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. It would probably start some form of curse rumor that would only get more people to go there to try to solve that case. But how would Freddy's have dealt with the pandemic? Would they have made enough to survive the years of quarantine? Or would they, like our Chuck E. Cheese, have to file for bankruptcy? Would they get to open their Pizzaplex? Or would some problematic tweets from William Afton rise and cause the restaurant to get cancelled for calling Chica a he? These are all good questions that we will never really have an answer for because, well, FNAF isn't real. And that's why people keep commenting that nothing in these videos is scary. No, it's not real. It can't actually hurt you. That's why it's not scary. Scary is subjective. Just relax. The arcade is probably the biggest reason anyone went to Chuck E. Cheese, the second being the recycled pizza conspiracy, and the third being because of the characters. However, the kids this time around will be coming for the FNAF characters and be staying for the arcade. The arcade could be filled with the normal games we see at normal Chuck E. Cheese's: skee-ball, whack-a-mole, basketball, knock-a-clown, all the rest. However, the biggest showstoppers could be FNAF-themed versions of these games. Whack-a-mole could be Whack-a-Mini-Rena, and Knock-a-Clown, you know, the one where you like throw the balls at the clown or like you throw them at its teeth, could be Popping Balloon Boy's balloons. There could be a photo booth that puts a nightmare animatronic or Springtrap behind the people in the booth for a real scare, and you could include custom games like Fruity Maze, Midnight Motorist, and Security Puppet. There are plenty of people who've made their own arcade cabinets. Take this one from the YouTube channel I Like to Make Stuff. Bob does an incredible job. And all Scott would really need to do is code full versions of these games. Oh no, a game dev having to code new games, so difficult. Actually, not even new games, games that he's already made, just full versions. The games would be incredibly popular and would result in high revenue since they wouldn't really provide tickets, so they'd just be spending coins to play real FNAF games, but getting nothing other than that in return so your prize counter doesn't lose anything. This is how the businesses think. They could also make machines for arcade versions of the original FNAF games, maybe having buttons that flip through cameras and you need to find Foxy before he it gets to you or something along those lines. The prize counter could have a real version of the FNAF puppet box there, playing its signature music to provide a reason for why it's still closed. However, this could potentially be opened at night during the horror nights. If not, the person working at the prize counter could simply be dressed like the puppet. The prize counter could offer things similar to the one from Help Wanted, and offering signature items such as stuffed baskets of exotic butters, which have already been made by Funko. They could also offer FNAF Funko Pop figures, with rarer ones being valued higher, as well as potentially Switch and console versions of the games, along with the smaller prizes that are just meant to keep people from getting the big prizes by saving up. You know, the kids will impulse buy them. That's why they're there. This could also feature recreations of things like the Lore Keeper ending certificate, which you could potentially get by presenting something given to you after beating all 3 of the FNAF 6 games. You know, the ones in the custom cabinets I mentioned. There is way more we can talk about this, trust me. In a 10 circus baby. Let's start off with one of the deadliest animatronics in the game. Baby has an official death count of 2, the first being Elizabeth, William's daughter, and the other being Henry as we see in FNAF World. But it's not just the ability to kill that's crazy, it's the incredibly advanced technology inside the animatronic that's really impressive here. The ability to contain a whole child grabbing claw and then also a containment chamber for said kid is pretty damn impressive. But also the ability to use pins on her body to change her appearance is also pretty insane. Not to mention all of her other features like ice cream dispensing and balloon inflating at her fingertips, but all of this is again overshadowed by the absolute carnage that Baby has the ability to cause. And honestly, that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, not even including the Fazbear Frights version that can change her appearance into an actual person. Oh wait, no, I guess that's the normal novels. Whatever. It's weird and scary. And at 9, mini arenas. Why are the mini arenas so goddamn creepy? They're not scary per se, but they literally tear Ballora to pieces, so there's something there at the very least. The mini arenas are basically the robotic versions of those kids in your neighborhood that are always screaming or causing trouble at literally all hours of the day. And then they go to a nearby school, so you're never really rid of them and you gotta deal with them constantly. Or they run down the street when you knock at the door to see their older brother, and then their family is so damn lazy that you have to take off after him. So you end up chasing a toddler that's in nothing but a diaper down the street at 11 in the morning, catch him in front of your other friend's house, and then have the kid pulling at your hair and punching and kicking you all the way back to his house, and then people realize that you're not related. And then you don't even get a thank you for doing the parent's job. That's the moment I knew how Spider-Man felt when the police don't thank him for fighting the dude with 4 robot arms so that they don't have to. But that's a totally fictitious scenario that would be too ridiculous to happen in real life. Look, I know his older brother watches these videos, okay? So yeah, Roshane was a piece of work. And at 8, Nightmare Animatronics. While not the epitome of horror, the Nightmare Animatronics are certainly not the nicest of fellows. Not only that, but they are in fact not real. They're an illusion, which makes them even more terrifying if you ask me. Or like, illusion is not really the proper word because they're in a dream. Anyway, not only do these creations cause horrific visions to anyone who knows about them, but they also kill a coma patient. Crying Child, as we know, is in the hospital in FNAF 4, making this game entirely just a nightmare. However, getting caught by one of these animatronics causes him so much stress that he actually dies, which is insane when you look at it like that, okay? These are so scary to him that it gives him a heart attack, or just makes his heart stop working, or something. And it's 7, Happiest Day. The Happiest Day minigame is some of the most important lore and moments in the series, with the original missing children from the first missing children's incident from 1985 getting their souls released, showing that there are multiple ways to deal with what would later be called Remnant, the infusion of metal and soul, or rather metal and extreme emotion, or maybe in Springtrap's case, metal. Get it? Because his human meat is also in the suit. Never mind. Either way, the Happiest Day minigame is not a simple one-shot minigame. There's some build-up to it. It's like the main story of FNAF 3, so seeing those various minigames and glitches come together into a single arcade cabinet would be a beautiful sight. Almost as beautiful as Glamrock Chica. I mean, as my idea for a real FNAF pizzeria, which you should go totally watch, by the way. It's in one of the corners. I don't know which one anymore. And at 6, Claw Machine. This is pretty dark, but you people seem to love that kind of thing. So what about a claw machine that was designed to be Baby while she was grabbing Elizabeth? Is that too far? Like a claw machine that's built to look like the baby animatronic on the outside with a window on the stomach where the claw would come out. and that's where the claw machine is. I think that would not only be a fun way to make it a FNAF themed claw machine, but it would also be dark as hell, and I love that kind of thing. Plus, it's about a fictional death, so it's not really distasteful. The idea also stands that this is something out of the box for this list, and I wanted to see what you thought about it, rather than just ranting on about the various minigames in the series for 10 minutes. However, it's time to get back to that, so moving on. Halfway through into number 5, Corn Maze. Corn Maze is one of the most stressful games in all of FNAF VR, compared only to the likes of the hallway from that very same DLC. Corn Maze revolves around you walking through a maze made of walls, not corn, for some reason, in search of colored keys. These keys unlock their respectively colored gate and result in you winning. However, Grim Foxy is chasing you and he always knows where you are. The only way to really get him off your tail, pun intended, is to hide behind cardboard cutouts after he notices you. The maze is also filled with clusters of crows that will alert Foxy to your location if stepped on, which will result in him finding you faster, as well as scaring the living hell out of you. This game, in the same vein as the Help Wanted flat mode version, but controlled with a joystick and buttons, would work incredibly well, and you wouldn't have to find all 4 keys to unlock a secret one. You just don't have a secret one and you're golden. Man, I'm a genius. And at 4, Security Puppet. Ah yes, Security Puppet. One of the 3 mini games required to play through to completion for the Lore Keeper ending of FNAF 6. And let's be honest, you should always play mini games through to completion, otherwise it's just mean. The Security Puppet minigame was pretty simple. Keep the assigned child away from the exit. However, the only catch is that there was no assigned child until the 3rd time booting up the game, where the child will already be outside, thus you failing. We know that this child is Charlie, who goes on to possess the puppet, and this was the only time we've seen a kill from 2 different angles. However, a game kind of like a Where's Waldo kind of thing with security bracelets seems like a wonderful and simple idea, especially when we know what the character is really trying to prevent. Would there be a green bracelet character, or would we only be looking for the green band? I don't know, it would be up to Scott. Also, Scott, or I guess whoever takes over next, please do this. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Lonely Freddy. Lonely Freddy already in a way kinda has a parallel in our world. I mean, like, kinda. It's like the trope where someone becomes your friend and then becomes more like you and then tries to take over your life. Is that a thing? Is that actually a thing? I don't know, maybe I dreamt about it ages ago and then forgot, or maybe it was like an episode of a show. I think it might have been a show. I don't know. But like, also just plain old identity theft is kind of another version of Lonely Freddy, just not as advanced. A Lonely Freddy was introduced in the Fazbear Frights books, and it's basically meant to explain what psychic friend Fredbear is, maybe, or at least that's what some people assume. But it's a robot that steals your body and then traps your consciousness into its original robot body. What the ever-loving hell? Why is that a thing? Why is that so goddamn terrifying? Especially in concept, right? But like, if it was actually real, what the absolute living would I do, okay? It's easy to say that we could just avoid them, okay, but we wouldn't know that they existed, okay? We would just be lonely kids dreaming about having friends, and then all of a sudden a robot wants to be our friend, okay? It would be vicious, and it would definitely have gotten me when I was a kid. Okay, I really wanted a friend, but especially a friend that was a robot. That would have been sick, man. But ultimately, in number 2, reality-altering discs. I mention these every chance I get because of the implications, alright? They're insane. If you don't already know, the original FNAF novel trilogy revealed that the twisted animatronics used discs that transformed how others saw them, basically creating an illusionary appearance using sound emitting from the disc that messed with your brainwaves or whatever, however they explained it in the FNAF books. However, the mere existence of these discs puts everything we know about the series into question. How do we know if anything we see is real? FNAF 1 had us hallucinate different things, like it's me, along with multiple news clippings and posters, and if one of my other theories is right, even Golden Freddy himself. So like, what if that was just the discs? And if it was, what if other things were changed by the discs as well? Like, is that really what the pizzeria looked like? Do the animatronics have more of a rotten appearance than we see in the game? I don't know, and I don't like not knowing, alright? Unless it's about the creation of the universe, in which case, that is, I don't need to like see Cthulhu and die, you know? And finally, into number 1, the spring locks. The spring lock mechanism is probably the most intuitive thing that FNAF's world has ever invented. The ability to move robotic parts out of the way enough for a human to fit inside a costume is nuts. And while it may be dangerous, we also drive over 100 kilometers an hour in huge metal death boxes, so we can't really complain about it. And actually, you know what? Yes, we can. And while yes, cars have their faults, there is nothing compared to the ability to be both animatronic and suit, okay? That's an incredible feat of technology. Yet, it's also terrifying because of the same reasons in game. Okay, someone can dress in it and then pretend to be a robot and then clamp down on you at any second. As it has multiple times before, okay? It can trap you. It could, if it were real, do everything we learn about from the books and the games. And it would make your life hell for fun. Especially when it can be a robot. Okay, and then the man who's once inside of it can like smile knowing that all your friends can't fight off a huge hunk of metal, you know? Like superpowers, basically. Oh, also, just saying, spring locks as they're presented in the games aren't real, okay? The real life spring locks are just locks on springs. It's like your deadbolt, but on a spring. That's basically what it is. So just don't even come at me in the comments. I know you were thinking it. Don't. And at 10, Scrap Baby. Scrap Baby is a creepy animatronic. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay, Scrap Baby is by far creepier than the normal baby animatronic because, I mean, it's scrapped. So this costume certainly does it justice. Animatronics are a difficult costume to really make, okay? I mean, it's understandable because, you know, we're people and unfortunately don't have robotic limbs for the most part. Or if we do, we typically try and make it look like a real leg instead of a robot leg. But Scrap Baby is even more difficult because, you know, it's a scrap animatronic and it has a giant freaking claw. So yeah, Scrap Baby is very damaged and it's a recycled version of Baby, okay? Realistic reddish, orange, light blue hair, yellow pigtails. It's weird, alright? It's weird, okay? She has an orange top with red furls and it's very damaged. Yet somehow Instagram user Gaia Spaziani was able to recreate this in an awesome way, okay? So very well done, and maybe you can use it as inspiration for yourself. And at 9, Springtrap. Oh boy. Craftix Gaming's YouTube channel features a video of a real Springtrap costume, and honestly, it's terrifying. Springtrap is the main antagonist of FNAF 3, and this costume is freaking nuts, okay? This is a very good costume, and while Springtrap may not be the scariest animatronic per se, he's not someone that I'm gonna tussle with, you know? However, I do want to talk about what's going on with this character, because my guy, you just dressed up as a possessed man who is inhabiting an animatronic unable to die, but yet still somehow decaying. I don't get it. You're quite literally dressing up as a serial killer at this point. Like in the FNAF world, if you dressed up like this, it would be you dressed up as like Ted Bundy. It was like an equivalent in this world, okay? So if you want to be in FNAF that badly, maybe don't dress as a serial killer is all I'm saying, okay? I know that's ironic coming from me, given that I wear a purple shirt on the regular, but do I look like I want to be in FNAF? No, I cry about it on the daily. I have made things very clear that I don't want to be in this world, and if you don't know that, go watch more videos, okay? But this is nuts, okay? That's insane, and if Springtrap was delivering me my pizza, I probably would cry. And at 8, Ennard. Costumes don't really have to be elaborate to be scary, okay? Take this for example, this Ennard cosplay by the YouTube channel Skywarped33. This entire endoskeleton, like spaghetti bits, they aren't there, but the lights and sounds make it even more frightening than you'd think, okay? The face also opens up, and I think that we all know how I feel about animatronics who can move their face at will, or at least move their face in separate sections, okay? It's not something that should be allowed. However, even without all the parts and the various eyes, this Ennard cosplay is not something that I would want to run into in a dark alley, especially not after that goddamn vent repair minigame, because that caused me to have serious issues, okay? I used to like spaghetti, man, okay? Now what do? I won't be ordering spaghetti from this delivery service, that's for damn sure, although if they do have Ennard spaghetti on the menu, I might have to. But no, okay? Especially if the driver shows up wearing this, because holy crap, that would be terrifying, and I would rather die than see a real-life Ennard. So yeah, maybe actually don't do this, at least if you're delivering to me. And at 7, the Scooper. Now, I know that you may be mad and think that this is a stupid point, but hear me out, alright? The Scooper may seem like a weird but kind of normal thing, at least by FNAF standards, but with the blueprint revealing how this thing actually works, it's incredible. It's such a feat of technology. It can inject whatever it ends up scooping with Remnant without really having any injection points, and its Remnant is a molten metal possessed by souls. And then, assuming my theory about Michael being a robot is wrong, it can then, by doing so, keep a person alive after removing their insides, replacing it with robot parts, and then those robotic parts leaving that body still leaves the flesh suit viable. So in essence, it just makes that person a walking case of flesh. unless it didn't actually remove anything and instead just opened him up and then let the innards get in. But like, he flattens down like a pancake. Dude had no bones. That's impressive, but also terrifying. That would require some serious juice. Dude's juicing. And at 6, Fetch. Fetch was introduced in the Fazbear Frights books and is a robotic dog made by Fazbear Inc. It gets a little too loving. So much so that it will actually brutally murder the girl you want to ask to homecoming. So, sorry Peter, but at least you won't have to feel bad about sending her dad to prison. Either way, a robotic dog that will kill anything you love is absolutely horrifying and should be taken care of as soon as possible, if you know what I mean. Like, this is why you spay and neuter your animals, people. But in all seriousness, could you imagine if this was a real thing? Like, if you like randomly started getting texts from a robotic dog that followed you home, that instead of bringing you dead birds or squirrels, instead brings you the bloody arm of your crush. Yeah, that sounds like something the Winchesters would fight. Or that it would be on some other really weird CW show or some crime show or something, okay? Yeah, no thanks. Ignoring the Dean-inspired look today. Halfway through into number 5, Twisted Ones. Well, the Twisted Ones certainly do seem to live up to their name. The Twisted animatronics are these horrifically disfigured creatures that get no love from their mother like an ugly duckling. The thing is though, they don't grow into swans. Instead, they use another bit of technology that I'll get into later to disguise themselves. They also dig deep into the ground and wait until the middle of the night to crawl out and take kids who wander away from their mommies. Yeah, this legit sounds like an urban legend that parents would tell their kids to make sure that they were home before dark. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about them. Although the whole crawling into a hole and then only coming out at night thing, I wish I could do that. I don't like dirt. And at 4, human robots. This is something I'm sure that some people won't think is scary. Maybe they'll think it's scary good, but hey, the fact that there are robots that are actually able to look like humans is horrifying. Like, that is such a scary thing. In the original FNAF novel trilogy, it's revealed that Charlotte, the main protagonist of the books, is in fact one in a series of robots meant to allow her to grow up properly after being killed at an early age. But not only is she a robot, apparently she's also baby. At least that's what I remember reading about, okay? In the books, Charlotte's robot, or like the adult version of her robot, was also able to look like normal circus baby thanks to the pins on her body that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, that's the epitome of horror. Who in their right mind would think of a concept like that? And if it was real, we would all be goners, okay? This is like the fembots from Austin Powers. That's basically what this is. And then all the down bads would be trying to give it to them, and then they'd get themselves scooped. I'm surprised it didn't happen in the novels, since that one guy had his gears turning, if you know what I mean, although he wasn't actually a robot. And if you do know what I mean, can you please explain it to me? Because I'm not even, I understand what's going on at this point. My brain is all mush thinking about this circle of logic going on. I don't want to, no. And at 3, Withered Bonnie. This Withered Bonnie cosplay is probably one of the scariest FNAF cosplays I've seen and the scariest Bonnie cosplay. It is incredible that someone could actually do this, and it comes from the YouTube user The Nick of Time. At first, I legitimately thought that this was CGI instead of an actual costume, but lo and behold, it was just an insanely cool costume. Glowing eyes, seemingly actual aluminum parts, and a chest that opens that you can push out with the other hand, which results in actually quite the decent jump scare, okay? Frankly, in the video, I was kind of taken aback by that, so you know what? If that's where my pizza came out of, I don't know if I would take it. This kind of thing always impresses the hell out of me because, like, so far, the closest I've come to making a full costume was when I helped someone work on a costume, okay? But that's the closest I've got, and I can't even think to make something like this. So if you show up and my pizza pops out of, like, your abdomen chest area, I'm gonna tip you 100%. That's insane. But ultimately, in number 2, Glitch Trap. We know my issue with Glitch Trap, alright? We know that I just want to watch William Afton burn in the deepest pits of hell and then leave me be. I want him to be in actual hell and then stay there for all of eternity so that I can move on with my life, okay? I hate this I always come back thing that he's got going on, okay? It's stupid. And despite being dressed as the purple guy on various occasions, I still want William dead.
again. So when I saw this frighteningly realistic looking glitch trap costume, my nerves hit an all-time high. I think the sheer simplicity of a glitch trap suit is definitely something that makes this a hell of a creepy costume, since, you know, the stitches here are very accentuated. It's very clear. It has higher contrast than the actual suit in the game, but either way, it's freaking creepy. And if a serial killer is going to hand me my pizza, I don't know, I was gonna say something that would make the cops concerned, and I feel like I've done that enough. So like, let's not have serial killers hand me my pizza, okay? But you know what? Good job, Zombunny Creations on Twitter, okay? But like, why'd you do this to me? And finally, into number 1, Purple Guy. While Purple Guy again isn't an animatronic, and I guess neither is Glitch Trap or Vanny, but you know what? I had to pad out this list somehow. I think seeing some dude dressed in purple delivering me my freaking Freddy Fazbear branded pizza would actually scare me to death. Like, I don't wear purple on this channel anymore because people kept calling me the Purple Guy, and the cops don't need any more ammunition against me, but also because I can't actually find that shirt at the moment. But still, this is something that I would absolutely do. If I had a car, I honestly might have actually delivered food for the Freddy Fazbear's pizza delivery service if it ends up opening in Canada. And you know damn well that if I was doing it, I would be dressing in all purple with a security badge on my chest, maybe even like a purple phone case for the occasion, just because it would be hilarious. Okay, I don't need a spring lock crank. Those aren't actually a thing in real life. While the term spring lock is used in real life, it's a totally different mechanism from what's actually in FNAF, okay? I'm certain most of you get the whole spring locks are real line from the Spring Locks and You How to Not Die Remastered thread from the FNAF wiki. However, actual spring locks are just locks that use spring. Like, from my research, what I gathered was that a spring lock in real life is, in simplest terms, if your front door's deadbolt was on a spring. Every other instance talking about real spring locks is just, it simply brings you to that page, or it quotes that page. So yeah, spring locks as they're used in the games do not exist in real life. Okay, the term is used, but in the real life it's 2 separate words instead of 1, and they are nowhere close to the same thing. In a 10 Halloween special. Given FNAF's track record with various expansions around Halloween, I feel like it would only make sense to have some form of Halloween special thing around these delivery restaurants. Whether it be a special menu item or maybe like even a discount. FNAF has released so much Halloween DLC with FNAF 4 and FNAF VR that it would just make sense to have something to do with Halloween with this delivery service, okay? And like I said, whether it be like a limited menu item, like maybe like some candy from FNAF VR, or as Amanda suggested to me, chocolate cockroaches, since apparently you can eat cockroaches in FNAF VR. Apparently it's also required to get the Let's Eat achievement, which is hilarious, but it could also just be like a random Halloween theme for the store, alright? That you can just like as you're scrolling through, you can see like Springtrap or the puppet watching us while we just scroll and needlessly spend our money only to make us sit on our couches and watch more YouTube. I mean, like, if you're watching us, that's probably the best way to spend the inevitable end of the world, but I mean, like, come on. And at 9, Fizzy Faz. Fizzy Faz is a set of items that can be found in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, and using them, or like obtaining them, actually increases the player's stamina, and they can be found in different locations around the map. Fizzy Faz appears to be a Fazbear Entertainment branded soda line, featuring the main animatronics of this game, and sold like exclusively at the Pizzaplex. Each member of the animatronic band is featured on the cans, and they have like a flavor that represents their like color, I think, which is kind of weird, but that's a whole other thing. Okay, there's an orange flavored Fizzy Faz sponsored by Glamrock Freddy. It was located in like a control room when you first enter basement 1. There's a sour lime flavored Fizzy Faz sponsored by Montgomery Gator. I mean, it could have been something other than lime. I feel like lime, so like gotta do the lemon and lime to actually make it work, but whatever. Pink lemonade sponsored by Glamrock Chica, and a grape flavored Fizzy Faz sponsored by Roxanne. Again, I feel like there could have been better options for that, because I mean, like, she has hardly any purple on her. She has more red, so you could have done cherry, but you know what, that's just me. But having those cans, or even just that kind of branding available on the app, would be pretty sick, even if it's just like in the style of like those Funko soda cans, you know, like that have the figure inside, or maybe it's just like a beer cozy or something. That would be fun. And at 8, themed meals. Just like how McDonald's has like the Happy Meals, Freddy's could have some form of themed meals as well, whether they they be based on the games or on a favorite animatronic. I think that there would definitely be some form of like pizza, it's like a food theme that you can order, especially with the pizza. If there aren't like different combinations for the different popular animatronics, I'm gonna be mad, okay? I need to be able to order Chica's favorite pizza mashup, okay? I need the Freddy Fazbear Meat Lovers, or maybe the Monty Gator Meat Lovers, because he's a crocodile, and the crocodiles are meat. You know what I mean, okay? The Freddy Fazbear one might have like anchovies on it, because like he's a bear, and anchovies are fish. You know? I think it would certainly help make this place feel like more of a Fazbear delivery service than just another pizza restaurant, okay? Like how Mr. Beast has like the whole like Carl's grilled cheese or like the Chandler burger on his store. Yeah, this is that kind of concept, except it's just themed for animatronics instead of people. And at 7, Vanny. With Vanny being the villain in the last game and already one of the most popular characters in the entire series, I know that she's not an animatronic, okay, but chill. There are bound to be plenty of costumes of the character. However, this specific one from Rojita Ubu on Twitter is probably the most accurate and creepiest one I've seen. And yes, I said Ubu with a straight face, and let's ignore it. Vanny being a reluctant follower does in a way technically make this also a glitch trap cosplay as well. We won't talk about it because that's not what counts unless you want to consider glitch trap an animatronic, in which case it's totally fine if you want to think that. This costume is probably the most realistic one on this list because, well, I mean, Vanny in the games ended up making her own suit and it's just a human inside, whereas the others like Scrap Baby or Springtrap are animatronics as well as being part human, be it soul or another body. And Rojita's costume actually follows the exact same concept. It's just a person who makes their own suit, which potentially makes this the scariest thing of all, but honestly, considering how she is currently the serial killer in the series, at least the version that actually has like proper working limbs, I would very much appreciate not seeing a real Vanny delivering me my pizza balls. No thanks. And at 6, Buff Helpy. Okay, so this may not be like cosplay or a costume that someone could reasonably wear, but Buff Helpy is probably the most disturbing non-cosplay character that I can really include on this list. If you don't already know, somehow, Buff Helpy is a meme that was created on a Daco FNAF meme review video and has ever since been haunting him and the rest of the community, okay? Don't get me wrong, I do love Helpy, but this Buff Helpy meme generated a whole load of buff FNAF character ideas that now terrify me. Nowhere is safe from these horrific creations. If you look up any character, you're bound to find a buff version of them at some point. It's kind of like those games where it's like, let's search up a character and see how long it takes them to be sexualized, and then they scroll down. Do that with a FNAF character, but see how fast it makes them buff, okay? It's the same thing that happens to Chica, but buff, okay? No matter what this is, like what form of psychological torment this is, I would not wish it on my worst enemy. However, I'm talking about it because, you know what? It's hilarious. If Buff Helpy showed up delivering my pizza, I would constantly order from this place. Not because I want to see some like buff shirtless dude in a Helpy mask actually hand me my food, but because that is the most genius marketing ploy ever, and I would be very proud of them. Halfway through into number 5, Nightmare Freddy. Nightmare Freddy is one of the most iconic versions of the Freddy character, even if there are only 3 games that feature them, those being FNAF 4, Ultimate Custom Night, and FNAF VR. However, this Nightmare Freddy cosplay is absolutely insane, and in my opinion, it would have been the front runner for the Coupe de France cosplay competition, but that was back in 2017. The video was uploaded by YouTube channel Gorgon Geek, and this guy plays the robot thing very well, but as soon as he drops that microphone, he goes into like terror mode, which is certainly something to behold, okay? I would have enjoyed it if he had the frettles with him, but the moving mouth is certainly a nice touch on this costume, especially with the attempted jump scares that they do in the video, like the Imagine if this guy got up on stage in a freaking Nightmare Freddy costume and then just started twerking. That would have won them the gold, okay? I don't know if they won or not, but that if they had it, that's what would have gotten you the gold, okay? But also, if Nightmare Freddy was the one delivering me my pizza, I don't think that I would actually end up eating it, just from sheer fear that they would have poisoned it, or maybe you put too many chili flakes on it. I mean, like, come on, look at me. In it for Nightmare. I've said it before and I will say it again. Nightmare is the scariest animatronic from these games, hands down. Get it? Because I put my hands down. This guy will get me every time, and it's one of the reasons that I refuse to play FNAF 4. The other one is Nightmare Fredbear, okay? But at least I don't have to really deal with them in real life, right? Oh wait, yeah, just talked about it. This is only like a Nightmare character created in the mind of a coma patient in a video game, but it is still the worst thing ever. Especially thanks to Zombunny Creations on Amino Apps, okay? We've got both Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear. Ironically enough, Nightmare Fredbear is played by their twin sister. It's ironic because Elizabeth Apton is sometimes presumed to be Crying Child's twin sister. And anyway, these absolute hulking costumes are going to make me, let's say, drop a Snickers bar in my pants. If I saw this in real life, Jesus, imagine like actually like living in a house that's kind of laid out like the one from FNAF 4, and then like your kids want to play a prank on you and then they dress in these and they come from either side. For God's sakes, I would actually rather die. If that is what's going to happen, I do not want kids. My grandparents' house is kind of laid out like that. Like not exactly, but it has like 2 sections of like on either side of the room, okay? So that could theoretically be reenacted. And if that ever happens, I'm going to cry. So if you start delivering my pizza dressed as Nightmare, actually good for you. Getting close to the end in number 3, good food. However, personally, I would like to see actually good food come out of the delivery service, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have high hopes for it. I am pretty skeptical, mostly because they're just menu items that the restaurant that is doing this will also start making, and since the quality of those items is only associated with the virtual dining concept store, being Fazbear delivery service, instead of actually the restaurant that's making it, they can probably get away with slacking. Since if the quality of, let's say, your Mr. Beast burger isn't the greatest, I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to order from Mr. Beast Burger again, despite it being the Wendy's that made it. So in my head, I'm like, yeah, I can order from Wendy's, but let's avoid Mr. Beast Burger despite them being literally the same kitchen. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, I'm hoping that these restaurants are actually end up making this, like, that make the food will be making enough from it that they actually want to have it be good quality, even after the initial wave of orders, okay? I also hope that we'll have more than just like pizza and like the same pizza that the place would make regularly, okay? For some reason, I have the idea of like pizza balls from the Multiverse of Madness, okay? Because honestly, that would be unique and that would be awesome. But like, that, aside from the pizza rolls that they initially said that they would have, okay, the ones with like the unique twist in game tie-ins that we still have no idea what that means, I want more unique things than just pizza rolls. You know, you get me? But ultimately, in at number 2, inside jokes. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with the exotic butters thing, but I'm thinking like fandom specific jokes. You know, like, yes, exotic butters, but what about the rest? Amanda suggested Coffee's Coffee from Scott's other game, A Desolate Hope, and honestly, I think that that's a great idea. I mean, Coffee's character is canon in FNAF thanks to the FNAF 3 VR Easter egg where Coffee can appear on your desk, and maybe A Desolate Hope is one of the in-universe Scott's other games that he made before he was being paid by Fazbear to start making fun of their tragedies, so I think that it would absolutely be possible and funny to include that as a bit of a nod to the fans. There are also plenty of other jokes that they could reference, be it in the packaging or other products. Obviously, there were the ones that we mentioned previously, pizza for the main cast of the animatronics, toys that could have some jokes as well, like maybe a Buff Helpy toy, which would be actually terrifying. Please don't do that. There are like, even if some of the boxes have like Toy Freddy being aggressive or something, I think that those would be a great way to help make the fans feel like they're getting a little bit of extra value out of their order because they know the series. Otherwise, like, what's the point of being invested in it if there's no jokes or hints to pick up on, you know? Like, kind of like a relationship, because all those have gone so well for me. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, giant flashing sarcasm sign, like the gif from Big Bang Theory, you know? And finally, in at number 1, secret lore. I think finally the thing that we all want is for there to be some kind of secret lore that is going to be revealed with these restaurants. Like maybe a secret code here and there, or maybe they end up revealing who caused the bite of 87 for real, or finally confirm that Crying Child is the one you should not have killed because no one believes me. But no matter what way you slice it, I think that we're all hoping for and even kind of expecting some secrets to come out of these restaurants. I mean, we got it with the Fazbear Frights books, we got it with the sister location toys because, you know, you bought them all and they all made Ennard. We even got it with the goddamn survival logbook. So, especially in lieu of this being discovered after MatPat suggested a potential FNAF ARG, I think we're all going to be surprised if this has nothing to do with that possibility. Honestly, I'm fairly certain that the only reason the Twitter account was revealed despite joining in January of 2021 was because of this leak and because people found out, okay? They were certainly going to be more delayed before revealing, suggesting that this was probably going to open in 2023, which also just so happens to be the time that Fazbear's Fright opens in Universe, the location we explore in FNAF 3, which, if you thought was opening later or earlier than that, I hope that this confirms the time frame for you, but like, these things aren't a coincidence. Not with Scott, not with the man who released the second FNAF game 87 days after the first, assuming that the first one would fail. No way, unless I'm crazy, which is entirely possible. And a 10 Pirate Ride. Given that this is already in the style of a game in FNAF VR, certainly does help in porting this to an arcade cabinet, but there would be some things that they'd have to change, like turning it into one of those like classic shooter arcade games where the screen scrolls as you fight off bad guys threatening innocent civilians, and it tells you what to shoot and what not to shoot. Yeah, that's the kind of arcade game I see this as, except instead of scrolling sideways, it moves forward like the cart does in the ride in FNAF VR. It could just be a simple aim and shoot kind of thing, but maybe they could add some animatronics sneaking in and throwing some cake or pizza at you that you'd have to shoot to block. This would be in order to end the game early, so that you'd then have to pay more tokens, or just straight up money depending on how the system was run, but based on modern practices I think it would be a token system because it probably would end up making them more money in the long run. And at 9, Fun with Plush Trap. Fun with Plush Trap is a simple game that would operate much like it did in FNAF 4 for the arcade cabinet. Despite having more of a presence in FNAF VR, the simplicity of the controls in FNAF 4 would be exactly how this game operates, just in an arcade cabinet, which would require you to just push a button to get the light to shine, and then you let go of it to turn it off, and allow Plush Trap to move, giving you the 60-second countdown to a jump scare if you fail to stop him before the timer, or if he gets to you before you stop him. It's a simple game with a simple premise, but it would work incredibly well for an arcade machine, and I think plenty of people would play it. And maybe you could have like multiple levels like Donkey Kong style, with various smaller nightmare animatronics like Fun with Nightmare Balloon Boy, Fetch, mini arenas, etc. Assuming that Plush Trap isn't a form of Fetch already. And today, Plush Babies. The 2 Plush Baby mini games where you have to look around for the various somehow animated baby plushes before they get to you is an interesting concept that with some tweaking could work for an arcade cabinet. It would require a joystick as the spotlight following the joystick, you just move it around to move the spotlight, but it's something that I think would work kinda well, but it would have to be done right. I don't know exactly what done right would look like. I'm an ideas guy, okay, I'm not a programmer, but I'm sure that it wouldn't be that difficult to work out, I hope. It wouldn't be as detailed or scary as the main minigame in FNAF VR, but it would still be something that would work decently well. It may not be the most popular game at the arcade, but that's why you have multiple levels including the hard mode one and the DLC one in the pumpkin patch. Plus, that's why it's only number 8, because it would be harder to get done properly. And at 7, the Sun and Moon Drop Candy. The daycare attendant is a sun and moon headed animatronic themed thing, creepy dude that is consisting of 2 personalities that share the same vessel and security breach. The character is like a mascot for 2 candy brands though, and they go by the names of Sunny Drop Energizing Candy and Moon Drop Sleepy Time Candy. These candies are actually how we figured out the name of the animatronic, but the animatronic, like, he chills out in like the daycare, which is a whole other like question, but then as soon as the lights go off, the moon shows up, and it's unknown if moon is activated when the lights go out in the daycare specifically, or if it's just when the area around him is dark. But however, being able to order the candy would actually be kind of cool. It would be a great addition to the app. I mean, it wouldn't really be like, it wouldn't actually be energizing or sleepy candy, because I mean that's just caffeine and melatonin pills, but even if it's like just branded hard candy, I feel like it would be kind of a cool addition. It would in essence be a form of collector's item because of that, and the amount of exclusives that this service could have kind of horrifies me. As someone who is constantly broke, the amount of exclusives, this is gonna be costly. I might have to give up literally my apartment for it. And it's 6 toys! There are so many toys in the FNAF universe that I don't even know. I don't even need to talk about security breach in this sense. In FNAF VR, there are a ton of prize counter items, okay? In this game, prizes are unlocked at the end of levels, okay? The player will open a present with a hand crank. It's kind of similar to a Jack-in-the-Box thing. Then you'll receive a random prize or a jump scare. There are 105 separate prize items in Help Wanted, and 70 of those are not food items. Even if we went to like the action figures only, much like how McDonald's and Burger King gave out or used to give out toys, the Happy Meals, maybe like the Fazbear delivery service could do the same thing, but not a Happy Meal because, you know, copyright. I don't quite know how it would work. They would need smaller versions of those action figures and whatnot, and I feel like it would be a lot, but it would be a little something extra for the kids who wouldn't really be satisfied having just FNAF branded food, which I mean is understandable. Like, you don't buy food, you rent it. Am I right, fellas? Just me? Okay, well, I don't really want to keep a greasy branded pizza box around my apartment as a memory, okay? So like, an optional toy would be a good idea. I also have no FNAF merch aside from that one shirt that I can't find anymore, so yeah. Halfway through into number 5, exotic butters. Exotic butters. Exotic butters. Cringy white guy aside, despite the terrifying ships involving exotic butters with other characters, yeah, sad to say I'm not exaggerating that. Exotic butters X entered is a real thing. Go watch the video. It would still be nice to have an exotic butters joke somewhere in this delivery service. Maybe a certain dish or category of food is made with quote-unquote exotic butters, or maybe they just like sell sticks of butter that are imported from somewhere else. I mean, it would be absolutely hilarious. They could also just do a thing where like you're ordering a basket of bread or whatever, but instead send exotic butters, like kind of like that scene from Sister Location. Or since that would probably cause some issues with people who don't actually understand the joke, maybe just like an April Fool's Day joke thing where like every time you click on a menu item it just says you're ordering exotic butters. I don't know, they may lose business that day, but it would be hilarious, and I feel like Scott doesn't really care about making money, so who knows. I don't quite know how it would work, but I mean, exotic butters is such a low-hanging fruit at this point, and I didn't think about it until Amanda reminded me, which is kind of sad. And for branding, I think that the appeal of this delivery service isn't going to be the food exactly, okay? It's going to be the fact that you're ordering from a place known as Freddy Fazbear's, and that's really the whole driving point behind this business venture. That's what it is, okay? Honestly, the only reason people order from Mr. Beast Burger is because they like Mr. Beast and or want him to notice them, kind of like tier 3 subs on Twitch. Yeah, despite it being a very, very low possibility, because, you know, it's Uber Eats, you still try. And before you tell me it's because you like the food, that seems impossible to me. I mean, unless Mr. Beast Burger is different in the States. Okay, I've ordered it twice and maybe got a couple of the most disappointing meals I've gotten on a delivery app, okay? The worst one was when the driver put my pizza box upside down, but like that's not the point. My point is that if people are going to order Fazbear's, it's going to be because it's Fazbear, okay? Even if the food isn't great. So driving home the branding and making it really good and iconic is going to do a lot for them in the long run, especially after the novelty wears off when it first releases. Trust me, okay? I went to school for this kind of thing, so I have a pretty good idea. Plus, also, have you seen this channel? Branding things with FNAF is kind of my thing. Getting close to the end into number 3, deliver pizzas. The mini game that opens FNAF 6 isn't like anything else we've seen. Okay, well, it's kind of like Take Cake, but this time you're throwing pizzas at kids' screaming faces, and honestly, I love that idea. The fantasy of throwing a pizza in the screaming kid's face has been present ever since those little buggers in my old building bounced their basketball off my door and made my dog go absolutely nuts. But even without my secret thoughts, this would still be a fun arcade game, and I'm not letting you fight me on this. The difficulty of the game was already defined even before the real FNAF 6 started, and it was cool. But then throw in added difficulty of it being a full game and you have a whole new experience. At least, I think it would be at least, so can't be sure unless we try. Penultimately, in number 2, Midnight Motorist. Midnight Motorist is another one of those games that you could test in FNAF 6 that just feels right. The game is pretty simple, but it's certainly exactly what we need in an arcade cabinet at a pizzeria. A game for the short attention span of a child. You simply drive around until you run into 3 things, then boom, it's game over. You get tickets based on how far you went, or it's one of those lame ones where you don't get tickets at all because there's no feasible way to calculate that, which would also be kind of understandable. example. Or you just get 3. You know the ones I'm talking about. Midnight Motorist would make a good arcade game aside from the whole yellow guy mustard man debacle, so cut that part out and you're in the money, baby. Go forth and collect the king's tax of tickets and tokens. And finally, in at number 1, Fruity Maze. Fruity Maze, I think, was the obvious first choice here because while yes, the game does progressively get darker, it doesn't have to. You can stick to the original level 1 Fruity Maze motif. Add a proper goal or objective and then have a weird FNAF version of a Pac-Man style game. Boom, you're done. Just don't make it depressing and allow the player to continue as long as they can, just like a normal Pac-Man game would work, and you're good. And you're golden. Golden Bonnie, dare I say. And maybe throw in a certain level where it's like the messed up dog, flowers, and blood kind of thing just to make sure it's authentic, because knowing these comments, you'll all be disappointed and even get mad if these things don't turn into something dark and twisted. I don't know about something like new being added to the series in the real world, but I don't know if you'd want that to be twisted and disturbing, like if it was a new arcade game, for example, but something like Fruity Maze, you'd insist on it. So yeah, I know you're all sick bastards, and I love you for it.
Now, the Horror Nights are what I find the most interesting out of these new ideas, with maybe these happening once or twice a week instead of every night like I said last time, thinking logistically and knowing that most people won't want to work all the nights. 9 p.m. would be when they would normally close, so instead, how about closing for an hour while the team sets up for a special treat for all who dare to return. The restaurant could be lit with black lights, revealing blood stains on the wall along with handprints and maybe some text written in blood, or paint that shows up under a black light, and not during the day. The lights in the bathrooms could be flickering, and most of the arcade machines would be off, aside from any that make loud noises, distract well, or could scare you. Skee-ball, basketball, balloon popping for example, as well as any custom ones like the FNAF 6 Lore Keeper minigames, or if any of the 8-bit minigames from FNAF 2 were recreated. Obviously, they would include jump scares at the end. The food would be limited to whatever you wanted, probably taking away the breakfast for dinner, and you could have actors walking around in nightmare-themed suits with the animatronics programmed to make sudden movements, since they need to move to keep their servos from locking up, but they can't really walk around. The music that plays could be replaced with atmospheric and scary themed music, like what we use for our videos, with periodic screams and maybe a couple faded door shakes and calls from Phone Guy, making sure that Scott Cawthon makes an appearance in the first Freddy's location. This would be the first pizzeria to do something like this, as of my knowledge, and the possibilities are endless. It would be a great first date as long as you're both into it, and it would increase profits tenfold, basically turning the place into a diet bar with horror elements, keeping the place open until 2 a.m. when you have last call at 1 or 1:30. I don't know how bars work. I turned 19 and then I didn't really go to bars, and then the whole pandemic thing happened, so I can't really go to bars now. Yeah, I don't know how bars work. I could talk about cash flow and investments, but that doesn't really interest you, I'm sure. Now, what makes this different than your typical kids play joint, you ask? Well, it does actually have the FNAF characters, not infringing on copyright because Scott would be doing this all himself. There is another aspect of the place that I think would make this even more unique and bring in more sales. FNAF is a horror franchise after all, and for some reason, a whole load of these kids love being scared crapless by the many animatronics. So, why shouldn't this location offer a spooky surprise for anyone willing to come after dark? Much like how Security Breach will have a day and night cycle, why not let the restaurants have the same? Where instead of closing at 9 p.m., they swap to a creepy and horror-themed joint where the kids can come to get scared while eating pizza and playing games. You know, the lights can flicker, you have people dressed up, like a year-round haunted house. We could even get some of the games we see in Pizzeria Simulator, like Fruity Maze and Midnight Motorist, in real physical arcade machines. All you need is a TV monitor. People do it all the time on YouTube. It would actually be an incredible idea that would suck in a lot more people and increase profits late into the night. This also works for adults who are fans of the series, who may not want to deal with the children and the kid-friendly atmosphere that the location would have during the day. This time frame would feature actors in the FNAF suits, but not Springlock suits because, well, we all know how that ends. But this would be just like a Halloween haunt for our Canadian friends, or whatever Disney does. It's like Halloween Horror Nights or whatever it's called over there. People in costumes who can't touch but aim to scare, maybe jiggling some doors or hiring actors working as kids or patrons who get lured away, maybe even making a Nightmare Fredbear suit. There is so much that you can do. Oh, you can have like Foxy slowly peek out from behind it unless someone like looks or something like that. You can have him slowly peek out and then you can... Eventually, of course, you could expand, opening more Fazbear locations at the other closed Chuck E. Cheese's. And I feel like Chuck E. Cheese would be down for that too, because the resulting competition could help boost their sales as well, since there would be kids who don't want to go to a horror-themed joint at night, but have a newly ignited or rediscovered joy for pizzeria arcades and animatronic bands. And hell, even as a joke, you could open up Chica's Party World, because we all know that Scott's gonna have some form of like ARG with these locations if this is actually a thing. Scott, I have an idea for that too. Hit me up. The menu would serve pizza, obviously, but also themed meals like Chica's Chicken Wings or Bonnie's Breakfast for Dinner, since, you know, eggs. Maybe Foxy's Flapjacks. It will definitely use a little work, but I'm honestly thinking it would taste and look incredible, both the menu and the food respectively. I have a design in mind, but let's be honest, I can't show my whole hand, can I? No, I actually gotta leave some stuff to actually hopefully make this a thing. So, cause you know, if there's some mystery, Scott might actually cause we all know how he loves mystery. And Scott, by the way, I'm happy to help. I love this series and would travel to see a Fazbear restaurant like this happen. And if you go with the Florida location like I suggested, everything is open, so you're already good to go. Maybe not morally speaking, but just like roleplay William Afton and you'll be fine. So, share this video with Scott on Reddit and any other media you can so he can help see it. Sky Daddy Scott, please make this a thing and please let me help. I promise I will be professional and I won't actually call you Sky Daddy Scott to your face. I went over the interior design in the last part briefly, but only offered ideas instead of actually providing examples. So let's do that. Like I said last time, I think the purple sections of the wall should be replaced with red and black squares like we see in the original maps. And the white and black squares with the red outlines on the walls should go around the joint as well. We've seen the interior in the first few games, so we might as well just recreate something similar. The booths could just be repainted, or they could be separated into sections based on what animatronic is your favorite. Same with the party tables, with sections for Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy, with posters for each characters indicating those sections, as well as banners to indicate it overhead so you can see it at a glance. The stage may come with a separate section for Foxy known as the Galaxy stage for Chuck E. Cheese, which would easily be converted into Pirate's Cove. It's already a circle, you just put up a curtain. Firstly, location, right? The obvious answer here is to go with the closed Chuck E. Cheese location. Chuck E. Cheese recently has closed 34 locations across the US, with locations closing in California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and Wisconsin. So, any of these locations could be used as a potential first location at the very least, with some states having multiple closures. Buying one of these locations would be expensive, and online I couldn't find any real reports on how much it would be. You'd have to work that out with Chuck E. Cheese. However, to open and operate a Chuck E. Cheese location would range from $1.17 million to $1.83 million, with a franchise fee of $800,000, according to Chuck E. Cheese's section of franchisehelp.com. So assuming the higher end of the price range, this would require an investment of around $2.63 million. Not taking into account that these locations are closed and they're probably just looking to break even on it and maybe not make money. But which state should we be selecting? Well, looking on Google Trends, we can actually see what states search for Five Nights at Freddy's the most. Looking for the search term Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, since you know that would be the name of the location, we see Virginia searching it the most over the past 12 months as of April 2021, followed by Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Texas in that order. Comparing that to our list of states, Virginia is the state with the highest search and has a close location in Fredericksburg. And I don't know about you, but the fact that it's in Fredericksburg, you know, like Freddy, that seems like fate to me. But there is also the thought of Florida, who is the second most searched and is only slightly less searched, so like it's like a close second, and has multiple Chuck E. Cheese restaurants closed, located in Miami, North Lauderdale, Miami Gardens, and Green Acres, so there is room for expansion. Florida is also a popular tourist spot thanks to the Disney Park in Orlando, where I would go with my family. I think we've went like 2 or 3 times. So it's probably a better idea to go with Florida's Miami location, even though Orlando and Miami aren't really that close, but it's still centralized, okay? And everything's open in Florida, so you can start work on it right away. So the Miami Chuck E. Cheese location is the first one to be bought by Scott Cawthon. What would it look like? Well, many fan creations always make it appear the same as just a normal Chuck E. Cheese, but replacing the logo and text. probably the most famous one being the image used in MatPat's old FNAF theories. But we could take this one step further. Since the inside of the restaurant is already seen in-game, we can take that same design concept and just convert it to real life. I feel like that's pretty obvious. With the red and black squares along the wall, potentially outlined with additional decoration. You would also need to either replace or repaint the tables and booths and stuff like that, along with replacing the posters on the wall and the banners hanging above. The purple would also be changed to another color, most likely red, or maybe more of the red and black square pattern we see along the walls in the first couple games. The animatronics, if included, could easily be updated with Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie designs. Well, I mean like easy in comparison to everything else that needs to be done. And once that's done, you just need to replace the songs that play out of the speakers and then boom, you got working stage shows. I don't know if Foxy would need to have his own section or if you'd want to like add that off to the side, or if you want to use the kind of like separate stage that's on some of the Chuck E. Cheese stages. I don't know, it depends on the location, if it actually has one. But other than that, that's just more construction work. We've been talking about how Freddy Fazbear's Pizza could get a real life location, not with any actual thought that it could happen though. In fact, Scott said himself that he wouldn't want to do it, but minds change, and Scott has said things before, like that sister location got cancelled due to leaks. So is there really a plot to open a real Freddy Fazbear's restaurant in the wake of over 30 Chuck E. Cheese locations closing? Well, how about we take a different approach to today's FNAF theory? Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and this is the secret plan for a real Five Nights at Freddy's location. Let's do it. So there's always been this desire from the community for a real Freddy Fazbear's, and it's been present since the first game. Because for some reason, they all think that it's a good idea to have a restaurant whose fictional series is built around the murder of unknowing kids to have a real world counterpart. And while I do believe that it would make an incredible amount of money, and it could be an outlet for Scott to divulge some more lore to us, there are plenty of sick people out there. So sick in fact that they might just want to recreate the games and may just take on the role of William Afton. And plenty of people have said that they're willing to die at a real Freddy Fazbear's as long as they get to contribute to making the FNAF story real. And that's honestly probably why Scott has at one point said that he didn't want to make one. But is this really the case? Has Scott just ignored the massive opportunity he has in front of him in the form of a real Freddy Fazbear's? Well, maybe not, but it's definitely not going to happen anytime soon. Let me explain. We know how dedicated Scott is to dates, both in-game and IRL, when releasing or talking about his games. He released FNAF 2 87 days after the first, like how we were all focused on the bite of 87 from the first game. Any date that he has put in the series has been solid, and even if things are changing, he always stuck to the bite of 87 and the bite of 83. Dates have always been important to Scott. And as any fan of the series that has at least tried their hand at their own timeline can tell you, FNAF 3 takes place 30 years in the future. In fact, the events of FNAF 3 take place in around 2023. And while that's quite the coincidence in-game, because like 30 years in 2023, I don't know why I think there's a coincidence, I think just maybe because they both have 3s. Anyway, the thought is that perhaps, while we may not get a real Freddy Fazbear's this year or the next, that 2023 is a possibility for when a real Freddy Fazbear's or even a real Fazbear Frights could open. I mean, if he started planning now, it would definitely take a while, right? Hell, maybe he's already started planning, but now he has to wait because of COVID, or he's just planning on opening it up in 2023. And by Fazbear Frights, I mean the location of the third FNAF game, not the book series. And I mean, they are going to need a set for the upcoming FNAF movie, whenever it ends up going out, so maybe this is all just getting us prepared for a real FNAF. I mean, there was that Nicolas Cage FNAF movie ripoff that I'm sure was just a cash grab trying to capitalize on the FNAF movie hype before the actual FNAF movie came out. But could this be what Scott was planning from the beginning? Getting everyone hyped for the possibility of a real location, or what a real location would look like in his mind with the movie and the books which expand on the lore, because he was planning to open one for 2023 at the same time that Fazbear Frights would have opened in the FNAF universe. It would make sense, especially for Scott. And he's really running out of ways to give us more lore hints at this point. He's already released 3 full novels along with like 9 books that all have 3 shorter stories inside. And those, and especially the Fazbear Frights books, yeah, don't think I didn't notice the name, all had insane lore clues that helped us distinguish parts of the series that we've been previously confused about. Like how William had survived being in a blocked off room for 30 years without food or water because he was possessed by a kid. It also explains how he survived the fire from FNAF 3 and FNAF 6, and how he managed to get a hard drive in order to possess it before FNAF VR, so it could get scanned into the game and then he would become basically immortal. But now we've seen source code being used as a clue, the names of photo files that we've had to access with Notepad being a clue, audio files, voice actor listings. Hell, at one point I decoded the name of a color and how it relates to the Emily family as a clue. Not to mention the countless hours of searching through all the games and then the logbook and oh my god. And yet still nobody has figured out FNAF 4. There aren't many new things he could do to bring us innovative ways for hints, unless that's what this place would be for. And he used this place as an ARG of sorts, where you can get lore clues and maybe even some answers to things like FNAF 4, or even who caused the bite of 87. So we can have a definitive answer instead of being stuck on either Mangle or Toy Chica or Golden Freddy. Hell, pull a WandaVision and base the series off a new decade each week so we can actually be there for the bite of 87 when it takes place and then gets shut down and then it reopens the next week as a new decade. Huh? And for those people saying Scott already said he wouldn't do it, first of all, people change their mind all the time, whether the reason is financial or not, and this place would be a huge success, especially after Chuck E. Cheese closed over like 30 locations. The timing couldn't be better at this point, honestly. The big problem with this is the danger, and while I'm sure Scott would have as many security measures as he could, we need to remember what the story of the games is. It's about kids dying in these restaurants, and by one of the creators of the restaurants, no less. I'm sure that Scott doesn't want to end up like Henry. These issues only heighten when you look at the discussions on this. I've seen comments on our videos talking about how they'd be happy to get stuffed inside of Freddy, and how they'd just be happy to die in Freddy Fazbear's. I'm not even going to make a joke about how you would rather want to be stuffed into Toy Chica, but also the comments about how they want to kill someone in a FNAF location, or how they want someone to kill someone in a FNAF location. No. Or how they want someone to go missing and the story of the games to be real. Look, I know you guys love the game, okay? I love it too. The story is incredible and cryptic in all the best ways. But what the hell? Like comments from the last video talking about what could be in like a real FNAF. Someone had commented, bro, if this became a thing, I would want to get murdered so I can possess a suit. That would be so epic. Ah, yes. No. It wouldn't be epic because you'd be dead. Possession isn't a real thing in the real world, okay? And even if it was, we don't know how it works. It's not like if there's a real world version of FNAF, that agony will be what determines you possessing something, okay? If possession was real, it wouldn't be something that's simple and it wouldn't be something you can control. And at that point, if you want to be murdered, it's not murder. Okay? It's self-assisted murder. Because, you know, if I say the actual word, YouTube's gonna flag this video. But that wouldn't cause you agony. You'd be happy to die. It wouldn't even work in the FNAF universe sense. But it's reasons like those that will ultimately get Scott to shut down this idea permanently. And even if they're meant as jokes, he probably wouldn't want to take the chance because, well, they may not all be jokes. And if anyone got hurt or worse because of something he opened, honestly, I don't think any of us would be able to forgive ourselves if we were the cause of that. Like if we were in Scott's shoes and we opened a Fazbear restaurant and then someone ended up getting killed because of the games and the restaurant, I wouldn't be able to handle it, I know that. Even for asking for it so much that he felt like he had to do it. So stop saying crazy shit like that. You know for a fact that you don't want to get killed at the place, even if it's what the original games do or whatever. That's not fun, it's not cool, don't say it. It won't help the situation. So if you really want a real FNAF, stop saying it so you can get killed there, okay? I can't believe that I had to say that. So is there a secret plan to open a real FNAF location in 2023? Probably not, but there very well could be. So if you want to see it happen, let us know below. And let us know what you'd like to see if there was a real FNAF. Like, what would you want to see in the restaurant? Would you go there for the pizza, for the games, for the characters?